Hey guys, today we're going to talk about some key and important details I think when it comes to guard retention. We're going to be talking about 3 specific things in this video. The first being grips, the second being your frames and that knee and elbow connection, and that third is going to be staying on your side or a hip if you're seated. So if John's here and we're starting to fight, let's say I'm in seated guard, for instance, the first point of contact is going to be grips. He needs some sort of grips to initiate his pass. A lot of times, most of the time they're going to be gripping your legs or your hips to control your hips to pass the guard. So when John initiates his pass here, for example, if he goes for, he tries to put me on my back and goes for Toriano here. He needs to control my legs so I can't get my legs back in front of him. So first he establishes his grip and then he gets an angle. So in that first process, if I can break that first cycle and get my own grip, let's say a 2-on-1, these are really effective, especially in no-gi. If he goes to pass now, the angle, he doesn't really have control of my legs when I'm moving, so I can always square back up with him. And a lot of people will focus on this grip fighting sequence, but what I think is really important also is to combine that with knee and elbow connection and staying on your side. So if I'm gripping John, if he's a good fighter, he knows he has to break this grip really to be able to start passing. So he's going to use his other hand to break the grip. And what happens sometimes is they're going to get a step ahead of you to initiate their pass. So there are going to be times where as you're shooting or maybe trying to initiate your offense, he's going to be able to get his grips at some point. Ideally we don't want to let him initiate the game, but it's going to happen when you're rolling, right? So since this video is focused on guard retention, we're going to focus on controlling the grips. So if we can get a 2-on-1 and control the grip, that's ideal. And now we can start setting up our offense, getting connected, whether you like shin on shin, inside position, daily giba. That's for a different video. But for now, we're gonna start establishing our grips so that he can't get the grips he wants on my legs and the hips. So if we're controlling one hand, that will help us. But this will always fail at some point because a good guard passer is going to eventually find their grips at some point. We can't always be attacking, unfortunately. So it's very important to have a good guard and guard retention. So if I start attacking him and he gets the grips, I'm trying to get close, it's really important that I have my next step, which is the frames. So if I don't have close frames, for instance, if I'm seated, John can start passing here and he gets inside what's called my elbow-knee space. And just so y'all can see, it's pretty much from my hip to my armpit. I'm trying to cover this space so that I'm using my bone structure to keep him from controlling my body. So anytime John is controlling inside the space that stays inside control, this is really good for him. I don't have much control and much weight to dictate the space of the space between us, so I can't really have much control of the match. So if I have my frames in front here, now if John, because my humerus bone here, for instance, he's supported under it, so he can squeeze me as hard as he wants here, and that's as close as he's going to get. He has to be around. So if I leave my elbows down, and a lot of guys will do this against side control, just try to push or use their hands, and he can squeeze me here, and I'm not going to be able to alleviate the pressure from here. But if I use my bone structure, so I raise my elbows so that he's supported under my humerus bone right here, instead of using my muscle here. Now if he goes to squeeze me here, that's as close as he's going to get. He's actually going to choke himself the more he squeezes. Yeah, I know John can feel it, right? So basically, we're going to apply this to guard retention, right? So when John's in front of me, for instance, there's a lot of different passes, but we're just going to try to keep it really simple here so you can remember with concepts. So let's say he's just doing like a body lock style pass. So if I'm attacking him and I'm not aware of this connection, he can get inside and start controlling me. And there are things I can do to get out of this, but this is not a position I want to be in. Now I'm very defensive. So if we go back, if I keep my knee, at least one knee and elbow connected, he can no longer do that pass. He has to get inside. He has to like pummel to get inside this position. And I'm always going to be pummeled and fighting for this inside position. So if he's pummeling, he's now moving my elbow outside my knee and elbow connection. He's getting inside my hip and my armpit space. So the purpose of your frames are really to control that distance, and that's why you want to stay crunched with your knees and elbows closed when you're retaining guard. So anytime you feel like he's going to pass or he's putting pressure on you, make sure you keep this connected here. So now if he tries a body lock pass, he can't get inside. Like try to pummel inside or get inside, it's going to be very hard for him. And it's going to be a battle, but it's a small battle that you need to be aware of in order to retain your guard effectively, especially at higher levels. Okay, the third thing we're going to talk about is staying on your side. This is really important, especially if you're not very flexible, and can help force our opponent to one side to pass. It makes it way easier to retain guard because our frames are facing our opponent. So if we're flat on our backs, if John's in front of me, let's say he got ahead of us on the grip battle, and he starts to get an angle. A lot of us are taught to retain by, framing here and then pummeling this leg. So whether you bring this leg up here to pummel, and that can work, but when somebody's really trying to pass your guard, putting a lot of pressure, making you turn away, it can be very difficult, especially if you're not very flexible. Like, especially in the gi when you have the stronger grips. So rather than letting them dictate a side, because if you're playing flat on your back, you're actually letting your opponent be more athletic. So if he's standing up and going to pass, he can do whatever, and now I'm having, my first thing is I'm having to turn to my side to re-guard. So why not just stay on your side to begin with? If you think about it, if he's in side control, one of the first things I have to do is to get on my side. So I have to have my frames in place first to create distance so that when I'm on my side I can move. And when I'm using my frames, I'm just holding them here. I'm not trying to push John. I'm not trying to use strength. If you're pushing with your hands, this is wrong. Like, you're using a lot of strength. Jiu-jitsu is about leverage and technique. So we're going to use our bone structure. So I'm going to use my humerus. So I'm just going to raise my elbows up so that they're between us. So if John tries to squeeze me, this is as far as he's going to get. And so now I can start moving my hips away. And I'm not trying to push him. I'm just moving myself around my frames to get out. We want to apply the same principle to guard retention. So for me, when I'm on my side, I'm able to utilize those frames effectively. Because if I'm flat, I have no way, even if I have my knees and elbows connected, he goes to the side here, I'm connected here, I'm staying tight, he can still push me away. Here, he can go north-south, and it's going to be very hard to move and retain. So, in order to eliminate that, whether you're seated, like a seated guard player, or you like to play on your back, I like to always have one knee close to the mat. And this detail I think is really important because some of you think that you're on your side and this knee's up at a 45-degree angle, or like here. Even if it's like at a 45, he can still use this leverage. For example, if you do a Toriano pass, to show him, if he comes to the side here, like this, and my leg's up, he can use this to push my hips this way. You want to come around this way? And you're going to push my hips this way so they can't face him. It's going to be much harder to retain. And you can also have more leverage to push this leg down. So when this leg is close to the mat, it allows me more options. My frames are facing him. I can move better. I have one foot I can use on the floor. I can use this foot also to like pummel inside if I need to. But I have more options to move and connect with my frames. If I'm flat on my back, I'm still stuck on the mat. And now I have to use more flexibility, like pummel, and sometimes it's very hard to move when somebody's gripping, especially deep, and controlling and pulling up on your lapels and your pant legs to turn you away. So if you can start off, Whether you're seated, you're on one hip with one knee down, you know, this way or this way. If you're like a supine guard player, you like to play on your back. Same thing. If you're on your side, this leg or this knee down. If he's passing, you can still use this bottom foot to pummel, but my knee's close to the mat here. And an important thing is that these principles work together. So I can't just be on my side and not have my knee and elbows connected, because even though I'm on my side, if he goes to pass that same Toriando, I go back to this Toriando here, I'm on my side, but because my knee and elbow space is separated, he's still gonna go knee on belly here. It still has space. So if he goes back, I don't want to do a traditional shrimp. I think a lot of people are taught this wrong, is that they're taught the shrimping motion without a knee and elbow connection. So when I'm on my side, when I'm shrimping to create space, I'm gonna get my hips back. I can't just frame here leaving my knee and elbow space open, because I have to be really fast, because he can follow me and step in at any second. So when I'm framing and hip escaping, I want my knees and elbows together. So if he tries to get in that space at any point, I'm still keeping connected to where he can't get in that space, and I can even connect now with my grips and my frames, so that now he has to deal with my grips first before he can pass, and I can start rebuilding my guard. You can start coming back, playing your guard seated or however you like to play. Basically by staying on your side, it allows you to be one step ahead, especially if you're not flexible. Okay, just to wrap things up, these key points I think really helped me. I think they've helped John as well. Basically improve your game is something that I've studied and tried to experiment with, especially I'm not a super flexible, guard player. So I think that these keys and details will help you basically first controlling the grips, but you also need to have a backup plan, because there's going to be times where your grips fail. And that's why it's important to maintain that knee-elbow connection and staying on your side. So using your frames and staying on your side are very important tools to back up your guard, so that you're not a step behind and you're more easily able to retain your guard with less effort. Like and subscribe, let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you guys.